speaking of making things better or easier for people, a interesting item that came out of our research on you was when you were on the Lex Fridman podcast, you talked about how programming languages can limit or expand thinking. So I
Oh
thought
yeah.
that's really, really interesting. So given all of the work you've done in Python, particularly for scientists, with that kind of use case in mind, coming from your science background, how do you think Python has influenced the thought processes of scientists and engineers and what they can do in their work?
Well, that's a great question. One that should be asked by a lot of people, because or to a lot of people. I'm not going to have. So I will say, language structures your thought fundamentally, right? So it's not just it helps you helps you say more. Like when you talk, you then realize an ephemeral firing in your brain, and then it promotes a question you're going to answer then again, and so it actually inspires your thought. And so the words and the symbols, the tokens that are essentially manifest by language, can influence future thought. And in Python in particular, what I would say is it's enabled introduction of higher level programming concepts to domain experts. Like it's not hard to get your head around a function call, but even a function call has to be explained. Oh, the fact that I can take my lines of code, if you look back at the Fortran era, scientific code was statements a mile long, all in one big linear sequence. And you go in there and say, we can actually break this up a little bit. You notice how you're cut and pasting this segment of code 3 times? Let's make a function out of that. Let's actually, change that. And now if you make changes, you don't have to make it for 40 places. You can make it in one place and everything benefits. So these are concepts, essentially programming concepts. So I would say helping Python, like the more domain experts get software engineering principles in general, is a big way that Python has helped. It helps to the degree that there's a transition, because I don't recommend somebody new to Python diving into async programming or category theory from the typists, from the type theory folks. Like as Python has grown a bigger community, there's definitely a place you get lost, and that's true. And but yet there's something to learn from that, because the nice thing in Python is you kind of have whatever it is, all the way from just how to do a simple loop structure, a simple function calls, and stitch together variables, all the way to compiler theory and intermediate representations and equivalence graphs, and it's all possible to learn. Some of that can actually help your thinking about other things. Like you think about, how do I approach a scientific problem? Hypothesis testing. Well, it's kind of similar. You have to structure your thinking, look at the results of the output, ask a question that's falsifiable, and try to get an answer to that question. And programming is also rigorous in the sense that the computer does what you tell it to do, and it only does what you tell it to do. It doesn't cooperate with you yet. I mean, maybe AI will help with this, but even then, I think we still need to be very clear. I've spent so much time tracking down a bug because the computer did exactly what I told it to do. I just forgot to tell it.
A really cool conversation that we had recently on the show was in episode number 754 with Jason Warner, who has just started a company. He didn't just start it. It's a company called Poolside. And
Yeah.
in the coming months, they're going to release their first LLM to the public. And it's an LLM specifically for coding. And it was I didn't expect his episode to be so mind blowing, but it was, because he made the case compellingly, in my view, that a code generating LLM that writes code that compiles could be a critical step towards an artificial general intelligence, because we have so much training data out there, so much code examples, and because it has to work, like you're just saying. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
unlike natural language, which can be
Right.
ambiguous, the
Right.
programming language just must work.
Yes. I actually really agree. I think that's it's like a limitation, and you've got to. I agree. That's really insightful observation. I've been a little surprised actually how LLMs can create code that works. It doesn't always.
It doesn't always, but the amount that it does blows my mind.
It blows my
Absolutely.
mind too. It's almost
Yeah.
like, well, it did train on existing code that worked. So, if it's using those spellings, those aggregation of words work. So it's like there's a structure there. Like there's a real structure to code. No, that's been a surprising result, but I think one that's super fascinating. And the feedback is what's essential. So yeah, I like. I've heard lots of anecdotes, and myself also have this anecdote of the co-pilots help talented engineers work faster and better. And I agree with that.